Welcome to the Power Tribe Network. Real talk, unrestrained, undiluted, unfiltered, unfettered.
You are listening to Unfettered Podcast by Adebayo Adeleke.
Welcome to Unfettered Podcast. My name is Adebayo Adeleke, and your host. And today I have a wonderful friend, who I call wonderful friend. She came to us across from the pond. I mean, she's from all the way from Australia, the other side of the world. Her name is Nicole O'Sullivan, and she's the president and CEO of Bird's Eye View Consulting. Nicole has a very unique and special skill that she's using to help businesses scale. She has done it in Australia, and she's currently doing it in the United States. And more importantly is the fact that she's representing one of the key values of this podcast about deriving some of the values within yourself and making the world a better place. And she's actually doing it. And I'm a firm believer that we all carry a special seed, and those seed in us, seed of gift that we can all be great in our individual world. And Nicole has, looking at what she has accomplished over the years, and she's just she's an epitome of that in itself. So I'm not going to have her pretty much out Nicole. I promised myself not to out and let her do the introduction herself. But with no further ado, Nicole, welcome to Unfettered Podcast. You have now entered the Unfettered zone. You are not censored. You can pretty much censored, can say whatever you want to say, and nobody's going to crucify you in the process. So, Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor to be able to be on your channel. So thank you for having me.
So tell us, who is Nicole? Who is Nicole O'Sullivan?
Who is Nicole O'Sullivan? Well, I've just started my own business venture. This has been happening for about 7 or 8 months now. And how it began was that I have been primarily in the travel industry for about 13 or 14 years now. And I've been able to be very fortunate in not only getting to travel to incredible places in the world. I think I'm up to country 38 now, which is kind of cool. I want to get to 40 before 40. That's the goal.
Wow.
But in that journey, it's been a series of leadership roles, mentoring roles, connecting roles, customer service roles. There's been so many opportunities that have been thrown my way, and I guess it's taken me a little time to realize what my gift has been, to be honest. So I feel like I have a really great story when it comes to the businesses that I've worked in or ran or led, and how I've been able to turn those businesses into profitable businesses in a very short amount of time. And how I feel like I've been able to do that is by really understanding my people and my customer. And, I'm really not a numbers-driven person, to be honest. I never have been. But how I've been able to get those results is not by me focusing on the number, but by really keying into what is important to my people. So that's where I feel like I've started to really master my craft in people connection, people management. I'm now just accredited now in DISC and motivators and emotional intelligence, which I feel is really starting to get some airtime out there now around how important it is to understand our people. Because if you want a result in your business, you're not going to get a result by pushing numbers down their throat. It's about what motivates them to get out of bed every day. What is going to help them feel like they're supported and that they're contributing and that they're valued. Because when we look at that side of things, numbers will organically grow. So yeah, I guess I've been very fortunate to start to work with some companies already, and getting some incredible results. But it's really come from that digging deep into people. And so yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, to be honest.
Wow, that's quite right. There's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot, yeah.
In our previous conversation, and our listeners are not privy to it, but you mentioned that, look at your resume, you've worked in the flight industry for quite some time, and you've walked around a little bit, but at some point you discovered that you have this gift that you can reach people that others cannot reach. And then, and that is oftentimes a lot of people struggle. Actually, a lot of people actually live their lives without realizing the gift and the seed within them. Oftentimes, during my coaching and during my consulting work, the first question I always ask people is that, have you done your self-evaluation? Have you actually sat down and do your personal inventory to see who you are as a person? Oftentimes, we always just live through life by living other people's lives. They want us to be certain, they want us to be this, they want us to be that, but most of us haven't really sat down and looked at how we fit into this fabric world, this world and its fabrics. How do we plug into this world? I'm here on this surface because of one particular reason. There's a purpose for me being here. Am I living my purpose? Am I getting to that level that is expected of me? And like I said, often we live our lives. People turn to 70, 80, 90 without actually living a purposeful life, without actually making sure that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is the gift therein, and I'm supposed to help others within my world and let that light shine. But you discovered it. And how did you stumble on this gift of actually reaching people in such a way that they cannot be reached?
Yeah, it's probably taking me a while to self-recognize that was my gift, to be honest with you. I think, I just, when we get results that were outstanding each month and profit that was, world record profits, and, people would say, what are you doing? Like, how are you getting that? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. And, it took me a little while to get that. And, honestly, like I split my 13 years. I did 5 years in Australia, and I did nearly 6 years in the USA, and then I went back to Australia for a couple more years. But, I think that when I moved to the US, I felt like that it shifted a little bit. I think that, in the organisation that I was in Australia, it felt that you were a little fish in a really massive pond, and to be recognised and to be, talked about in a way that I kind of was when I moved to the US was really different. You had to be, it was all numbers driven. If you were the top producer, then you'd be talked about. But if you were getting everybody on your team to be even, and you worked together as a team and got the result, you weren't really shouted out, or no one really recognized your skills, And then when I moved to the US, it was, I thought, I can really make a difference here. I feel that the skills that I know and the processes that will help support people will really make the impact. And that's what I really did. And I just started to really hone in on that. And I didn't even realize at the time, but people were listening into my calls, and they said, I think you'd be really great at a sales coaching role. And I was like, really? Okay, all right. And so then I guess I embarked on that, and that was when it hit me. This is my purpose. This is my why. This is what I have been born to do. I am here to help to connect with people and help realize their potential. And I've had conversations with people who are in their 70s who have said, "You've literally changed my life." And I'm like, really? So it's not about anything but just getting curious about your people and what's their story, and let's find out. Like, everybody's got such a unique thing to say, and I think if we really spend time with that and why they're doing what they do every day, then that's where the magic is. It's not about pushing them and saying, we need this revenue today and we need to hit these numbers. It's about, you've got to have high expectations. People need to have expectations, but you have to match that with support. You can't have both. You can't have one without the other. You can't have high expectations with no support, or you can't have high support with no expectations. It has to be a balance, Yeah,
you get that. You cannot have high expectation without support, and you cannot have high support without expectation. Actually, I haven't heard that in that form before. And so you discover this ability to reach people in such a way and in such a manner that it speaks to their core, and you kind of influence them to do what they don't want to do initially, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also being about really honest. I'm a very honest person, sometimes to the detriment of myself. Sometimes I'm a little bit too, I think you should do this. And, but I think, like you said before, your emotional intelligence really does take a big play. And I think I've really mastered the social awareness and the social regulation. I think that's I absolutely know that's my strength. But I'm really working on my own self-awareness for myself and my self-regulation so that I can give myself a little bit of love back, because it's like I'm filling a lot of cups up, but I'm not giving myself some love. So I think it's about, understanding that balance. And I'm almost 40, but it's getting to that stage where that's the time in my life where I'm starting to realize that and get that balance back about my own expectations on me. And I think it's about being vulnerable. You've got to show your vulnerability to people for them to understand that you are a genuine person and you genuinely care. And when that message comes across, I think that if anybody who's ever worked with me would say that we just feel so comfortable with you, and we just feel like, we've known you for a long time. And I don't know how that comes about, and I can't tell you how many times someone said that to me. So, I think that that's really important to connect to that and yourself, because if you can know you, then you can know anybody.
Yes. Wow. That's so awesome, because, dealing with people is one of the most difficult tasks you can ever give to a man. That's why leadership, despite that it has been probably the most researched concept or word in the last 100 years, is still difficult to today. Managing people is an Herculean task. It's difficult. And that's why when you manage people, you expect more money, because beside doing your technical work, and you have to manage people with it, it kind of complicates your matter. Because imagine you have to rely on people to carry out certain tasks, which is tying into your task. And that can be complicated because you know yourself, you know your capability, you know your threshold, but you don't know that of others. Yeah. You don't even know if that's going to mesh with yours. So oftentimes, managing people or interacting with people is probably one of the most difficult things one can encounter in a community or in a workplace. And that ability to be able to reach people, because we're all different. We grew up differently. We exposed to different experiences growing up, and we formed our own opinion. We formed our own kind of tenets that we follow on a daily basis. And that in itself, some are good, some are bad. We form our own moral skills and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But that in itself, kind of what I form, what is my moral code might be completely different from that of Nicole. And oftentimes when we interact, those moral codes tends to collide. And oftentimes which will result into conflict. So, and I know you've worked, and I want to hear about 2 or 3 stories of some of your greatest joy in ability to connect with people, and some of the greatest joy or conflict that you've experienced that actually shook you a little bit. If you have any one of those, are you willing to share?
You are listening to Unfettered Podcast by Adebayo Adeleke.
I've been so fortunate, like I said, with the journey that I've been on so far. And, I guess, look, I've run teams that have meant so much to me because of the way that we spent time to get to know each other. I was tasked with a team that, when I was in New Jersey, that were, a very low performing team. They had the most amount of inquiry per person per day than the whole company, but they were really struggling to connect with the customer and really struggling to convert those leads. And I had to change let's be honest here, you can't change someone's belief. It's about influencing belief, because belief is personal, right? So I had to really understand their belief system around these customers. And, unfortunately at that time they didn't believe that the customer was serious, or they didn't believe that the customer was, willing to book, or that they were just going to take their information and go and book it online themselves. And that was their belief. And that made sense as to why their results were the way they were. So this is what we talk about. It's all about people's belief system. When you can understand what their beliefs and behaviors are, that's why the results are or are not what you want them to be. So I had to go in and we had to really workshop those beliefs and influence the reasons why customers reach you at this hour, or why they ask you these questions, or, and really get curious in that space instead of furious, really. We're getting furious at these customers. We think they're wasting our time, but actually, they're asking for you for a reason. So this team, within 6 months, I turned that team around from the worst performing in the country to the number one most improved in the country.
Wow.
And it was such an awesome effort. And there was like 8 or 9 of us on the team. And, to move that amount of people in that direction in such a short amount of time was pretty an awesome achievement. I felt pretty proud of that we had turned that business around from they didn't like coming to work, they were sitting there pounding their keyboards like, ugh, versus now we're having parties and we're throwing streamers and we're, like this, it was such a fun environment to be around. So, and it showed in the results. So that's definitely a good news story that I can share. And, I guess personally it's about you said a little bit before about your morals and your compass. And, for me, I feel like when my compass is not aligned, or my morals are not aligned or my values are not aligned, I really struggle. It actually shuts me down. I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to navigate out of it. So instead I just, I shield my people. I always put my people on my number one value. And it's really about, I will take the brunt, I will take all the hits, and I'm not passing that on to my people. But in the meantime, what that does to me is it absolutely destroys me. So, I have had instances like that in my journey that have done that to me. But I guess at the same time has helped me be who I am today, because if I didn't have those and realize that these things, or self-understanding of my behaviors or my, things that knock me off kilter, like if I didn't have that happen, then I wouldn't know or be aware of it. So, I guess we all have these situations where, it's not that the message isn't aligned. So I guess you just have to make that choice, which I did, is to step away and just know that you're doing something for yourself, and it's not always everyone really cares at the same time, because you always think to myself, my biggest challenge is, what if I leave and then what is going to happen to everybody? It's not my job to look after everybody. It's my job to look after myself. So, and it took me a really long time to understand that, because I do have a lot of care for a lot of other people. So, again, I feel like a grown-up now. I'm starting to get it. So it's great.
That's quite profound, though, because oftentimes we get lost in the weeds of trying to help others and we forget ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what is expected, actually, in the essence of you are a leader, or you're kind of, you subscribe to the servant leadership, whereby you want others to progress, but you kind of, put yourself, you don't want to put yourself in the limelight, you want others to, but at the same time, you have to take care of yourself. Like one of good friend always says that whoever is well is the one that gives the blood. If you're not well enough, you can't give blood. Oftentimes, you have to save yourself before you save others. Yeah. And that sometimes can sound selfish, but in reality, it is what we have to deal with. It is actually, it is the order of the day, because how can you save others if you yourself are not well? So it's quite understand that even we, as we try to help others and connect people together to achieve a consensus, we have to make sure that we ourselves are well grounded in what we believe in. And oftentimes we live in a world that is quite globalized now, that our value system differs. What we believe is quite, what you think you believe in might not be what is others are believing. But how do you reconcile those? And that's another thing in itself. You grew up in Australia, you lived in Australia, and you came to the US. And oftentimes the way we look at things differs. America is quite an individualistic culture.
Yeah.
I think they have the same in Australia. I don't know much. If that culture is quite pronounced in Australia as it is in America, and some of this value system might collide, because it just doesn't. And I've seen it like I said, in multicultural environment, value system do collide a lot. How do you reconcile it, knowing fully well that you have a job to do?
Yeah, look, I think when you have that vision of where you can get the team to, I think it is really about, understanding cultures, understanding, beliefs, understanding, I always, any time I do a session with anybody, we always start with the belief system. Like, talk to me about what what are beliefs? What does that mean to you? You know, beliefs are personal, but we also have things called roadblocks. When you have a roadblock, which is, you know, your little Jiminy Cricket that sits on your shoulder that tells you all the things that you can't do, you know, it's about really identifying those roadblocks straight away. Because if you can identify that's roadblocking you, what my job is to help you get around that. Because if you allow it to be a roadblock, you're never going to get the result that you ever strive for. And that could be anything from revenue to buying a car to taking a vacation to losing 10 pounds. Like it's anything. Like a result is anything you're striving to do. But you know, we always create excuses as to why we can't. And I feel like that does dives deep into our behavioural styles. It dives into our emotional intelligence, everything. I think that there's so much in the mix there that, again, it's really about deep diving into our people and seeing where that is. And again, like you said, you know, yes, cultures are different, but people are people. And it doesn't matter if you're selling a vacation in the United States or a vacation in Australia, it's still the same. It's just, you know, slightly, you just have to adjust yourself, and you have to be able to change caps every now and again to mimic or help those customers or your people to understand their style and how they can interact and be better at communicating. Because I think we can be honest here and say that communication is dwindling. You know, the internet is absolutely taking over. I mean, look at the coronavirus right now. I mean, this is absolutely blown right out of the water. And unfortunately now with social media in 2020 is that the more someone gets a hit online, or a news channel or somebody who's reporting the news gets a hit, they keep that momentum going. Oh, this is getting traction. This is, you know, this is taking off. Like travel industry, we all know, we've been through this millions of times, you know, through terrorism, through SARS, through, you know, so many other events that, you know, the Zika virus, you know, all these things that hit us. But now momentum with news and all that really does fuel the fear, and fear is an emotion. And when we actually start to understand that we are driven by our emotions, that's why it's getting taken off the way it has. You know, it's like now it's an epidemic all of a sudden. It's like, hang on, wait, what? More people die in the United States from the flu. You know, why are we having such a panic here? You know, it's really crazy to watch. And that's what I mean. Connection and communication is really different from what it was 10, 15 years ago, you know?
Absolutely. We now, I mean, some of this thing this coronavirus has been politicized. A lot of things is being drawn out of it. I mean, people respond to fear more than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, people respond to fear. I mean, you talk about something scary, something fearful, people respond to it quicker than I think. And fear rules. And you see it in politics, and we're going to see it in America this November. The politics of fear. You know, about June-ish, you start seeing different kind of tactics from both sides about trying to win votes. It's about the politics of fear. And you said it right on. It changes the whole perspective of things, and it affects the way we communicate. Wow, that's awesome. So, I mean, there's so much to unpack, and I know this is not going to be the first and the last. We're going to talk, maybe next time we'll do a webinar, kind of open grounds to people, young professionals, about some of the things we've encountered over the course of time. But if you can say, like, in top 3 lessons you've learned about connecting people that our listeners can improve on in their ability. Their gift might not be to connect with people like you do, but we all need to connect with people either way, you know, not at the high level that you do it, but some people, at least in communication, in dealing with family, friends, in dealing with co-workers, we have to be able to communicate with each other. For us to be able to communicate, we have to connect at least at some level. So what are the top 3 or top 5 you think everyone should at least be cognizant of when they're interacting with people?
Sure. Look, the first thing is listen, and when I say listen, it's really listen. You know, when you walk in at the beginning of your day, are you just saying hi and walking into a closed room office, or are you know, that goes into my number two. You know, it's about connection, right? It's about knowing your people, know something about them. Like, you know, oh, Tony's cat's sick, so you know, I want to go in and have a chat to Tony in the morning. Hey, how's your cat going? It's something that's what's one little thing that you know about your people when you have those conversations with them that makes them feel like you actually are listening to them and caring about them, and you know, and then be genuine about it. You know, don't just be like, oh right, cool, I have to make sure I go past Tony's desk and ask him about his cat. Tick. You know, like it's that genuine feel. I think in terms of leadership, like that really speaks volumes. And when you can, you know, create an environment where, you know, you're transparent. There's no secrets. There's no suspicion or doubt. I think that's another thing that really does, you know, destroy organisations or has people leave. You know, just always remember this: that people do not leave organisations; they leave leaders, right? Yeah. So you've got to then self-reflect, and I think that's probably my personalized tip and something that I do regularly. You know, there's many times that I drive home at night and my radio is off and it's just me in the car and I can just reflect. It's about reflection on you as a person, as a leader, as a mentor. It's about saying, what could I have said differently? What could I have done to get a different outcome? You know, you're always constantly giving yourself some advice, because that's really a great way of how you grow. And I think if I hadn't have done that along the way, I don't know if I'd be here yet. You know, maybe I'd be there later, but I don't think I'd be where I am now if I wasn't doing that, you know, eventually. But I think I've, you know, been able to skip the line maybe because I've been very much honest to myself. And I think that's probably the golden tip there. Just be honest, and be honest with yourself more than anything, because people see that, people read that, they know that you're being truthful or not being truthful. So yeah, that'd be my tip. Is that all right?
Yeah, and this can be, like you said, being honest with yourself can be taught as well. I mean, through self-reflection. Absolutely. Every day we have to reflect. We have to be accountable to ourselves. How do we spend our day? Have we really accomplished anything today? Did we really do? I mean, did we hold up to the standard that we created for ourselves? The value that we created for ourselves? Are we giving out the value? Are people diminishing our value? Are we appreciating our own value, or whatever you want to put it? Yeah. That is so awesome. Thank you so much. There's so much to learn. There's so much to unpack in this. And trust me, Nicole, this is not the last time. We're going to do more about this. Before I'll squeeze everything out of you before you go back to Australia. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for dropping over there. And now you can leave the unfettered zone. Thank you so much. And till next time we meet, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Unfettered Podcast. I am your host, Adebayo Adeleke. Until we meet again, see you on the higher ground.
Sign up and be a part of the team. Be a Podtron at Podtron.com. Thank you for listening to Podtron.